really think you have a chance against us, Mr. Cowboy?
Hey, motherfucker, what do you like to do?
Oh, I don't know. Play chess. Screw.
Well, let's play chess.
They give off to Jonathan Taylor. Jump cutting his way, close to the goal line. He's in there. Touchdown! I-N-D-Y. Jonathan Taylor.
Wheeler finds Quan from the logo.
Here's Halliburton into the front court. Mishandled it, but gets a shot. Hits it! Hits it!
John, I have never been better to be on the air with you here in Indianapolis, a place where so many of my dreams have come true.
The Ride with JMV on 93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
Hey, welcome in. Next 3 hours, we got you locked tomorrow, and then on Friday on the road. You know, I mentioned this tomorrow. Upstairs Pub, Larceny Bourbon Locks, Luna Azul Tequila Shots, Kirkwood down in Bloomington. I would love to see everybody down there. Friday, we're going to be at the Back Nine. Drover and Morris. Very easy to get to on a busy Friday. I know a lot of you are going to be going out to the regional games, high school football-wise. A lot going on. But make sure you're a part of it coming up on a Bud Light Blue Friday at the Back Nine. I have Colts tickets to give away. So back-to-back days that are going to be a blast, but we rarely get down, outside basically of the donut counties. Really outside of Marion and Johnson and Hamilton County most of the time. Yeah, we're going to Monroe County tomorrow. And on Kirkwood with the Upstairs Pub leading into a big weekend where IU at noon takes on Wisconsin on Saturday. IU in action tonight hoops-wise against Milwaukee. If you missed it earlier this week, Tucker DeVries, sharpshooter. I would say much like me, but at times I was a bit broke as a joke last night, so I don't know if I can categorize myself as a sharpshooter. Normally I would. Last night maybe not so much. I'll tell you what wasn't sharp last night. Pacer defense. I'm assuming because Eddie had to work it, who was just in here, Eddie Garrison with Carrier Company, and me, because I hooped, came home, watched the game, and we had a very special 1985 back-to-back episode, a two-parter on Magnum P.I. I felt compelled to watch because he and the fellas went to Cambodia to try to rescue a former brother of theirs. Thought, yeah, I'm going to watch that. But I did stay up, and I also get the package for free now, so if there's an NBA game on, I can watch it, which is absolute glory. And it makes my mom mad because she got it for free a year ago, and I don't know why she got it for free a year ago and I didn't, and now I get it for free and she doesn't. And my 80-year-old mom's a huge NBA fan, and she watches everything. I don't know how much she stuck with the Pacers last night because that was an absolute embarrassing performance. And in a year where you're not going to get a lot of criticism from many, and that's understandable given their situation. I mean, the circumstances of no Halliburton, and certainly a laundry list, a scroll of guys that normally would be in there that haven't been in there. But as I mentioned last hour, I don't care who the hell was on the floor last night. That was embarrassing for him. It's not like you're playing Oklahoma City. That was a 3-win team. And I don't care that if it was, game 3 of a 4-game Western Road swing. I don't want to hear about the high elevations. I'm not willing to listen to anything because that was flat embarrassing. If you're prideful about your basketball, that shouldn't happen to you. And it shouldn't have, really, sure as hell shouldn't happen again. And I can't imagine that Rick Carlisle or anybody on that team would feel any differently than that. Again, no matter the personnel. You got guys out there on 10-day contracts, guys that have been here for a week, understandable. Guys that aren't any good, understandable. At least at that level, that can't happen. And it makes you wonder. And I asked Tony East this last hour, how many of these flaws now are being uncovered, unearthed, that certainly may have been glossed over in an era of Tyrese Halliburton. As Tony mentioned, they were 16th in overall defense going into last night. You fall 7 positions with that effort last night. That can't happen. I can't sit here and tell everybody that it's about playing hard and they're still going to give you, the hard play. That's, essentially what they're about, and then give up 152 to the Utah Jazz last night. Now, we'll see how they respond coming up in Phoenix. I know a lot of you are put off by that. I understand it. But frankly, that was embarrassing. And even at the professional level, at the highest level, I think you should look at that as such. Not just somebody on the radio yip-yapping about it for the sake of yip-yap. But that's exactly how it was. On the road in Phoenix to close out that 4-game Western Roadie tomorrow night, 9 o'clock. Back Saturday night versus Toronto downtown at Gainbridge Fieldhouse. So if you would like to discuss that, we can. I got into with my friend Alex a little bit of a back and forth, just not a bad negative back and forth, but he was talking about the defense. This was on X, the defense being better. Listen, I don't think of this team anything is better. There's nothing that really comes off with their start right now. We've just kind of pushed everything to the side and said, well, because of the lack of personnel, it's excusable. But last night was inexcusable. Again, no matter who's out there. Because that's not how these guys play. Or how they take games. Whether you were in the realm of philosophy, that's not how things go in that organization. And that is what we witnessed last night. But we were talking about, defensively, and, obviously the guys that are unavailable are always going to come up, and Miles is one that comes up. And, I've been done with that for a while now, and understandably so. But, as we were having this back and forth, I suggested it's not even so much about the numbers you see in Milwaukee or the lack of numbers that you saw in the finals or the behavior or how you've taken this transition from Indy to Milwaukee. All of that aside, all I'm here to tell you is that he was on both ends a threat that they don't have. And I'm not suggesting they needed to pay him a lot of money, because clearly once Halliburton went down at the 7-minute mark of Game 7 in the NBA Finals, everything for him dramatically changed. But the one thing that he does bring, and certainly consistency-wise that wasn't there, but the one thing he does bring is the threat. I mean, you have to acknowledge his existence, which I don't care what Tony Bradley's doing. Nobody gives a crap. Nobody cares what Isaiah Jackson is doing. Nobody cares what Jay Huff is doing. They just simply do not care. Everything goes unnoticed on the interior. Anybody feels comfortable in driving, and I'm talking about like under the rim finishing, not even at the rim or above the rim, but under the rim finishing. And then essentially you just feel more comfortable all the way around. You don't have to worry about something. And, even though there wasn't a high quality of consistent production there was still that threat, and that matters. And that matters until somebody else steps up in that capacity and, gives the opposition something to think about. And until this point, that has not been the case. And again, I'm glad that Tony Bradley was back in the starting lineup, or in the starting lineup, I should say, and has been producing, but it's not going to be the same. No matter what you feel, I know most of you dislike him to your core now, and that is fine because, he's handled everything really about as badly as you could. But I'm talking about in the realm of this basketball team and his presence, that certainly is missing. And I don't know when you're ever going to get that back. No matter what the stats say you are defensively, no matter what the stats say is happening in Milwaukee, I will tell you this. You can have a level of solace in understanding that at some point there, it is going to go incredibly haywire. Like for everybody that responded to me and said, I can't stand him anymore, blah, blah, blah. The book is closed, whatever. It's going to go so haywire for him up there one of these days. It just will. Either you're going to be standing in the corner like he did here when Sabonis was here, whether we're talking about, the Mick Bjorkgren era or the Bjork-McMillan era, where you stand in the corner, stand around, wait for somebody to give you a skip pass, or, you have that final option to shoot a corner three-pointer. That basically is what he's going to be doing there. And then if things don't go well there at the highest, and I mean the highest of levels, Giannis is going to bail, and he's going to end up in New York, and then Miles is going to be playing with Karl Anthony Towns and Miles McBride in Milwaukee. That's just along the lines of how that is ultimately going to go. So I wanted to put a cap on the social media discussion regarding that from a little bit earlier. Now, it's not that I'm a believer, and certainly I am done with it, but to suggest that there is no impact and they're better off, just a simple threat would be better than nothing right now. And you don't have that. Not even with numbers that, for example, Tony Bradley, with all due respect, put up last night, or how you feel about that. It is not the same because other players around the NBA don't view it as the same. They don't care. They don't care about what they have going on with the trifecta of bigs right now. There's no care. No worry, nothing. Yeah, Pacers and Phoenix coming up tomorrow night. I mentioned IU and Milwaukee coming up later on tonight. That is down in Bloomington. That is a 7 o'clock start. 93 WIBC, assuming, coming up a little bit later on. 6 o'clock this evening, right? Hour-long pregame. IU coming off that win on Sunday over Marquette. The one thing I talked to Tucker DeVries about IU basketball, and something that is going to be worthy of watching, whether you're an IU fan or not tonight, is how this team is all new, but how the ball movement is there. I mentioned to Tony East, one of the things without Tyrese Halliburton that stands out to me with this Pacer offense is that all these guys have to stop and think. And it's not like a long pondering thought, but they are a half step, a full step behind. When you have an orchestrator like Halliburton, the ball is always going to go. You know where you're going without thinking about it. It's reactionary. It is routine, and it is far from that right now, and that has an incredible effect on your offense. It has an effect on your shooting ability because you knock down shots is because of repetition, but it's also because of you being comfortable. If you remember, we talked about that with Tucker DeVries on Monday. And the thing that stands out about IU basketball in watching them in Chicago against Marquette on Sunday was you have an entirely new team and how everybody felt so cohesive / comfortable with one another. Now, I'm just talking about on the offensive end right here. I mean, basically, defensive end, it will at times come down to, not just connectivity, but communication, and there's just a lot of will and effort involved, which we didn't see much of last night. But offensively, you want to be in the right spots, ball's moving, it's not sticking. And as I mentioned to DeVries on Monday, the thing that stands out about the Pacer team and their run was just how majestic the ball movement was and how everybody always got hit in their comfort zone to make their shot. And there was no thought. There was no hiccup. That's what you miss the most out of no Tyrese Halliburton. And surprisingly enough, with an all-new team in Bloomington, that's what you saw. That product that we witnessed on Sunday was so drastically different than the past 8 years of offensive product. It was almost unrecognizable. It's like what I feel like when I'm watching TV and all of a sudden I see a We Grow Hair Indie commercial and I go, wait a minute. Who is that again? It's almost like unrecognizable. That's how the IU offense felt to me because the last 8 years, everything stuck. It always stuck. And then more times than not, it didn't turn out well. This ball was popping. It was moving. And again, I mentioned hiccups. Maybe they have a hiccup coming up tonight. Maybe they have a hiccup when they play better talent. Maybe Marquette is not that good. But all I can do is the whole eyeball test that I witnessed on Sunday. That was as fun an offense presented by IU basketball that I have seen in the better part of 8 years. And if you love basketball and you love ball movement, and you got that, and it was surprising that it happened so early in the season with a team that is so incredibly new. IU and Milwaukee, look for that common theme a little bit later on tonight if you're watching that game. Again, tip time down in Bloomington is at 7 o'clock. In fact, Milwaukee, Incarnate Word, Lindenwood, and then a matchup on the 25th with Kansas State is how the schedule goes for IU. I'd mentioned a little bit earlier, too, regarding Purdue. They are going to go under a massive test on the road at Alabama tomorrow night. Trey Kaufman-Wren, who has been missing, has said he will be back tomorrow night, and that should make everybody feel good. And Purdue still kind of searching. Most teams will. That's why it was so surprising to see IU look the way they did, especially offensively on Sunday. A lot of teams at this point in time are still searching. You saw that last night with Michigan. The 6th-ranked Wolverines in Detroit versus Wake Forest had to battle and then ultimately come up last night with that 1-point win. Incredibly talented. And it's interesting. It was a tale of halves, and this is what you have oftentimes in basketball so early in the season. Michigan put up 47 in the first half. And I don't think so much it was like Wake Forest locking down as much as it was all of a sudden Michigan's offense went kind of whack. And then you switch it. You saw Wake Forest put up 46 in the second half. And then Michigan had to survive. Man, oftentimes that's how you see a lack of connectivity, of cohesion, especially this time of year. And it is about surviving through those times. Yeah, tomorrow night at Alabama is going to be one hellaciously awesome test for Matt Painter and his team. Kentucky fans are outraged. A loser 96-88 to Louisville. That was a 12-9 in the rankings matchup in the Commonwealth. And Louisville, they put up some numbers in a big way. Another top 20 matchup you saw, number 14 Illinois taking care of number 11 Texas Tech, 81-77. You have Gonzaga. Man, Gonzaga put up 90 against number 23 Creighton last night. A lot of good games. But we'll talk to Bobby Buckets. Bobby Riddell, bottom of the hour, the Boilermaker Radio Network. We'll discuss the reemergence of Trey Kaufman-Wren and what that matchup means tomorrow night down in Tuscaloosa against Alabama. All right, 239-1070. We can go there. We can relive some of the off-week aspects of the Colts and their situation. What has to get right. We talked about the believability where they are at 8-2. And really, what's funny is you can sit back and relax and watch what happens throughout the rest of the AFC coming up this weekend. I mentioned a little bit earlier, Buccaneers and the Bills in Buffalo. Buffalo was 6-3. That is a surprise considering what people thought that they were going to be. You can see if Aaron Rodgers is capable of getting right after what took place in Southern California. Bengals and Steelers coming up at 1 o'clock on Sunday. No more Travis Hunter, the two-way player, done for the season, the rookie. The Jags are 5-4. 7-3 LA, the Chargers, coming up at 1 o'clock on Sunday. You also can be advised of this if there is a chief competitor right now. We're talking about Jonathan Taylor as the MVP. We are around here. I am here. But nationally, it's more about what Matthew Stafford is accomplishing with the Rams, what he is doing right now with a 7-2 team. Get a battle of 7-2s in the NFC. You can just lean back and watch. Again, one team that the Colts gave a win in their home place earlier this year, and another team in the Seahawks that the Colts are going to see, and that is a part of their amplified to a higher level schedule coming up after the bye week. And the Chiefs and the Broncos, the one thing that Colts fans, again, you're 8-2, and if you're a non-believer and you're waiting to see what happens at Arrowhead coming up after this week, in week number 12, at the very least, you can sit back and watch Kansas City on the road against Denver. I mean, Denver has an opportunity at 8-2 to really make things sting. I'm always at a crossroads regarding whether or not you face a team, especially a team like Kansas City, at home, coming off after a bye week, but Kansas City on the road in Denver coming up on Sunday afternoon. Whether or not Colts fans would like to see Kansas City lose, they'd be 5-5 if they lost. I mean, right now, they're fighting for survival within their own division. Would you rather see them on the brink at 5-5 or at 6-4 and tag another 8-2 in the AFC with a loss? By the way, you hold the tiebreaker over that particular 8-2, the Denver Broncos. So, yeah, you could just ease back and watch week number 11 unfold without a care in the world and see how it ultimately impacts the Colts the rest of the way. All right, 239-1070 is that number. Got the text line up and running right now, 317-239-1070. We shall get to that coming up as well. Bobby Buckets, Bobby Riddell, Boilermaker Radio Network, bottom of the hour. Pete Futek's going to join us talking college football, IU on the two-hole. What does the rest of the college football world believe with that? They don't like it. The infiltrators, it's a beautiful thing if you're a fan of IU football. Talk to Pete coming up in the 5 o'clock hour. Stuff to give away. Don't go anywhere. The stream, the app, HD Radio, AAA Membership Lounge via YouTube Live. Thank you for joining us. And your calls also coming up. It's 93.5-107.5 The Fan.
93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
Hey, welcome back. Yeah, nothing but the 90s coming up on Saturday night. Cypress Hill would be nothing but the 90s right there. You know, I mentioned IU later on tonight against Milwaukee. Butler with a win last night, 98-66, is heard on Fuego, 92.7 in this building. Thad Matta squad 3-0 on the season. Finley Bizjack had 22. Shot it well, 7 of 11 from the floor, 5 of 9 from distance. And the Dogs are now 3-0 on the season as well. Meantime, Boilermakers with a road test extraordinaire tomorrow night, but it does look like they're getting a major piece back in the fold in Tuscaloosa for that matchup tomorrow night versus Alabama. From the Boilermaker Radio Network, Bobby Riddell, Bobby Buckets, on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. Getting some good news, I guess, from West Lafayette today, right?
Yes, sir. Hey, JMV. Yeah, that was great to hear that Trey said he's 100% going to give it a go against the Crimson Tide. And obviously we've seen, the impact of not having him in the lineup the last couple games, just the inside force that he can be. He's a preseason all Big Ten, All-American type player for a reason. So it's going to be great to have his services back, and we're going to need him to play at a high level against this Alabama team.
No doubt about that. And these are the tests that Matt Painter wants to see his team go through, accomplish, and then work off of for the betterment of the rest of the season. But you mentioned, some of the things that have been vacant without the presence of Trey Kaufman-Wren. We know all about his status as a scorer, as a threat. But what else have you witnessed maybe a little bit out of whack without him being a part of this team here recently?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, last game was a little bit hard to judge with the style of defense that Oakland team played. They played that 1-3-1 zone, half-court zone, the predominant portion of the game. And so you're not going to be able to run a lot of your typical offensive man-to-man type sets, of course, against that type of defense. That defense, the way they played it, really allowed a lot of quality looks from three. And so that's not exactly Trey Kaufman-Wren's game anyways. And so we ended up taking a number of three-point field goal attempts in that game. A lot of them were good quality open shots. And unfortunately for the first half, we did not make a very high percentage of those. And then in the second half, we were able to shoot a better percentage. And that was a big piece of why we ended up being able to pull away a little bit. But I do think even though last year at the center position, he did not provide a lot of interior defense or shot blocking because he's undersized for that position. I do think with him in there at the power forward spot, which he'll play a lot this year, him alongside a Clough or Jacobson as that 5 definitely can help boost the interior defense and the rebounding, both offensively and defensively. And that's a piece that I think we've missed. We've missed his rebounding at that power forward position the last couple games as both Evansville and Oakland were able to get more offensive rebounds than you'd like to see.
Well, not only that, and this matchup coming up tomorrow night really concerns you in that category if those two teams have been a bit of a concern so far, because there's one thing that's going to be a significant upgrade, a lot of things really, with Alabama coming up tomorrow night is certainly the athleticism that this Boilermaker team is going to have to deal with, especially on the glass.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that. This Alabama team has got a lot of athleticism, a lot of size on the interior, and a lot of quickness on the perimeter as well. So they're going to have the ability to break down the defense. And, if you get caught in rotations and things of that nature, that puts you in even more risk from a rebounding standpoint. If you're caught in rotations and you got guards trying to drop down and box out big guys on the weak side, things of that nature. So it's going to be critical that we contain the dribble on the perimeter, force this Alabama team hopefully into taking some of those kind of mid-range type shots that they don't like to take. They're Coach Nate Oates, very analytical, likes to have shots at the rim or three-pointers. They take a ton of threes per game. Last year against us took 29 threes. In their win over St. John's this past weekend took 35 threes. So they like to put it up from long range. And, when you miss threes, you oftentimes get long rebounds, and that's where – and those a lot of times can go in the offense's favor. So Purdue That's where we've seen some issues, teams shooting some threes. Evansville in particular, they had 20 offensive rebounds, but a lot of those were they were missing threes and they were tearing along off the rim, and Evansville was quicker to the basketball in those situations and was able to get some of those long rebounds. So got to find a body, got to make sure that you're the quicker team, especially on the road, you're going to have to match Alabama's intensity. I'm sure since they lost at Mackey Arena last year, they're going to have some additional incentive to try to get some revenge on the Boilers and take down a top 5 team in the country. So, yeah, Purdue's going to have its hands full, but last year Purdue was able to survive on the glass in Mackey against the Tide. It was 37-35 overall, Alabama winning that by 2. So Purdue survived, but Purdue only had 3 turnovers to Alabama's 8. So, man, yeah, if Purdue can go down there and only turn it over 3 times, that's going to certainly bode well for Purdue as well.
Bobby Riddell, Bobby Buckets of the Boilermaker Radio Network. He and Rob Blackman will call the game coming up tomorrow night down in Tuscaloosa with the Crimson Tide of Alabama and the Boilermakers. The level of concern you have with the athleticism of Alabama from what you've seen, and still these are so many familiar faces with Purdue, but they still kind of have knocked around in general, like where they are right now in the start of a season. What has to absolutely get better tomorrow night for the Boilermakers to get this thing done?
Well, yeah, the dribble containment for Purdue defensively is going to have to take a leap up. It's just not been good enough the first handful of games this year. Way too many drives to the basket, penetrate, dump offs for layups, dunks, things of that nature. Way too many guys living in the paint. And this Alabama team is loaded from a perimeter skill, quickness standpoint. They're kind of three-headed monster, the 3 guys that lit it up for them in the backcourt against St. John's this past weekend. When you look at their 2 starting guards, Aiden Holloway and LeBaron Filan, those guys are terrific. Those guys had 21 and 25 respectively. And then the 5th-year senior, Latrell Wrightsell, who actually started against us last year in Mackey Arena, he comes off the bench for them at the moment. He dropped 17 off the bench, can really shoot the heck out of the ball from 3, made 4 threes against St. John's, and then made 3 against us last year. Those 3 guys are big-time point production guys. Wrightsell, much more of a perimeter-oriented guy, more of the likes of a Fletcher Lawyer as far as likes to shoot the 3. But Filan and Holloway, man, those guys are inside and out, elite speed, elite quickness, can break you down, like those step-back threes. And those guys are fully capable of making threes. But I do think from a Purdue standpoint, just because there has to be that added incentive of keeping those guys out of the lane, you're going to have to live with some of those, I think, step-back threes and hope that those guys aren't having, one of those smoking hot nights from long range where those step-backs are going down, because I do think you have to give up something. Those guys are just too talented, and I don't think you want them living in the paint, getting to the rim, getting to the foul line, getting in the bonus, things of that nature. So you got to contain those guys, and part of that containment is you're going to have to live with maybe some tough step-back shots. And I think Purdue's okay with that as long as they're contested and it's nothing easy. But obviously you're then at the disposal of those guys hopefully not having hot nights where they're making a bunch of threes on you.
So Bobby Buckets on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. We talked about the familiar faces, and certainly one with Trey Kaufman-Wren and his reemergence tomorrow night against Alabama. What about the new faces? I'm not talking about new to the program in terms of Jack Benter, who has been there for a year, just not participating in real games. But guys like Benter and Clough and some of these new faces, how have they been acclimating from what you've seen so far this early season?
It's been a mixed bag for sure. I think there's been some highlights for sure from guys like Oscar Clough, who's been in that starting center position so far. Omer Meyer, the freshman from Israel, he's been coming off the bench, relieving Braden Smith at the backup point guard spot, but also playing alongside Braden at times as well as that off guard. It's been, up and down for those kind of guys. Liam Murphy is also the transfer from North Florida. Because of TKR's absence, he's been able to get some more run. Him and Jack Benter, as you mentioned earlier, as that power forward position. And those two guys both can really shoot the ball, came up big with some big threes against that Oakland zone the other night. But, yeah, it's been up and down, right? Sometimes those guys make some plays and you're like, wow, okay, they're legit. I can see the talent. But then also there's been times where you're left wanting more from them. And, Oscar Clough, I think it's a transition, right? He goes from being kind of that focal point for South Dakota State offensively, where I'm sure his usage was pretty high on a game-in, game-out basis, getting a lot of touches in the painted area, facilitating or scoring. He had 21 and 15 last year against this Alabama program. So obviously has proven that against a program like Alabama, he can deliver from a production standpoint. But like I said, his usage in that game is a lot higher than it was going to be than what it's going to be in this upcoming matchup, just because of the likes of the returning guys we have, Braden Smith, Fletcher Lawyer, and Trey Kaufman-Renn. Those guys are going to be the high usage players on this team offensively. And so I think he's kind of in that transitional period, right, where he's trying to find his way, be effective in the limited opportunities he does get, but also kind of carve out that role as, hey, yeah, you may not be a high usage player, but there's going to be tons of opportunity for you to still impact the game from a rebounding standpoint, from a screen setting standpoint, getting on the glass and getting second chance opportunities offensively, being opportunistic with some of the opportunities you do get when you play alongside a guy like Braden Smith. You never know when the ball may be flying your way, and you got to be ready to catch and make a play when that happens. And then defensively, which is something he has done a really nice job of so far, I feel like, is providing some interior rim presence. Had 4 block shots in the game the other day, had 2 block shots against Kentucky in our exhibition with them. So I think he clearly has given Purdue a major upgrade at the center position as far as rim protection goes compared to what we had there last year.
That is Bobby Riddell. Bobby Riddell and Rob Blackman, two of my favorites, doing a little radio call and start of a new season, and we'll see what happens coming up tomorrow night. I know this is all a part of certainly the plan with Matt in mind, wanting to go out there and really test them, and this will be one hell of a test coming up tomorrow night for sure, Bobby.
Yeah, it's going to be a heck of a test, and it's going to be exciting. This team's going to be tested often here in the non-conference schedule.
Yep.
A big piece of why they played that Kentucky exhibition, of course, is to get prepped for going down to Tuscaloosa, dealing with a true road environment. And I'm excited. This team, is obviously outside of that Kentucky exhibition. As far as the games that have mattered so far, their first 2 games, they haven't played a team nearly to the level of Alabama. And, Purdue, of course, was the preseason #1 team in the country this year. All these returning stars coming back from last year's team, and now we're #2 in the country now, but lofty expectations, right? And You want to match some of those lofty expectations. Part of that is going down to a hostile environment like Alabama and coming away with a victory and kind of putting that feather in your cap, because we obviously know what the end goal is for this team this year with the Final Four in Indy, and part of that process is earning a #1 seed, giving yourself the best and easiest path to get to Indy. And winning a road game at Alabama would go a long way in terms of trying to claim a #1 seed come end of the season. So hopefully the Boilers are ready to bring their A game.
Bobby Riddell, the Boilermaker Radio Network. Bobby Buckets on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. Man, I appreciate you jumping on here today. We'll catch up with you at some point after this game and see what happens. But good to have you back, man.
Thanks, JMV. Yeah, happy to be back. Glad the new season's underway, and excited for another season of hopefully a fun Boilermaker basketball.
Appreciate you, buddy. Thank you for jumping on. I appreciate that.
All right, man. Take it easy.
Gotcha. I got caught between jumping and dropping. Dropping on. Thank you for dropping. I just created a new word. Football-wise, I mentioned I'm going to be in Bloomington tomorrow. We'll come back with that on the other side, too. Wisconsin, senior day activity, noon start on Saturday in Bloomington. And then an off week, the 22nd. And the bucket game coming up on the 28th. Meantime, Boilermakers at Washington. And then they have an off week, and they'll host IU coming up the 28th as well. Ball State, Eastern Michigan this weekend, I should add as well. And for all of you out there that love the Fighting Irish of Notre Dame right there at Pittsburgh coming up this weekend for the Irish. An off week for the Colts. Got that, an off night, a just awful night defensively for the Pacers in Salt Lake City. If you didn't stay up and watch it, I always want you watching. I always want you listening. But if you didn't, you're probably okay with it, given the fact they surrendered 152 points to the Jazz. Back to that coming up. Stephen Holder, back from Germany, going to join us coming up at the top of the hour. Pete Futek with IU's football program in the two-hole in the playoff picture. We'll get into that and the rest of the regular season and how things could shake out coming up with Pete in the 5 o'clock hour. Stream the app, HD Radio, AAA Membership Lounge via YouTube Live. Thank you all for joining us on the road tomorrow and Friday. Back with that info for you as well. The text line 317-239-1072. Don't go anywhere. 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
JMV.
If peeing your pants is cool, consider me Miles Davis.
93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
Stephen Holder, top of the hour. Pete Futek, what's he write for? Who's he write for? I know the name. What's it, college football what, James?
I believe it is College Football News.
College Football News with Pete. We need some college football news, by God. We're going to get that coming up in the 5 o'clock hour for you. I promise you, college football news with Pete. This is on the text line at 317-239-1070. This is incredibly fair of you to ask. Simply put, I cannot do it. I must discuss, because that's what we have to do. JMV, can we avoid the Pacer talk today? I prefer to only talk about winners. See, here's where we start crossing the line. And I know there's a great deal of frustration. I know as a fan you're frustrated to the highest of the highs or the lowest of the lows. To the penthouse, to the outhouse. Just in a matter of months. But last night must be discussed, and here's why. Because that was not reminiscent of anything that you expect from this team. And I don't care about the personnel who's not there, who's injured. I don't care how they've looked so far. You do not give up 1-5-2 to the Utah Jazz. They suck. Now, so do the Pacers right now. But you got to be more prideful than that. 150, well, they were knocking down shots. Look at the clip they shot from distance. And, yeah. I think they had like 60 points in the paint. That's the layup line that I discussed. When you have a layup line, it makes it really easy not to get much contest, and clearly they didn't last night from distance. So much of that is want to, and that's something we have never worried about in the past, want to. I'd never want to have to discuss this again. If you lose, okay. If you're down personnel, okay. But if you look like that and we can categorize it as want to, that is problematic. That's when a season where there are a lot of excuses to be made, you can't make an excuse for that last night. So that's why I discussed that. Yeah, I was a little pissy. I was. Just a little bit. JMV, can I just rant a second about how stupid Pacer fans seem to be? The biggest knock on Turner for some people was that he couldn't rebound, that they needed a traditional center who could rebound for them. People are stuck in the past, and it kills me to see the lack of understanding from Hoosiers. We are Indiana, and we know basketball, supposedly. How's the team now that you're one of the top teams in rebounding? A single win in 11 games, but they're rebounding. It's from Nate. I mentioned this a little bit earlier, and as I said, I'm well past it, but you cannot dismiss the impact of the guy you used to like, you used to rip, and now you don't like and you rip all the time. The former 33's impact was more profound than just what you got. He was a threat. They have zero threat. And again, I don't care what Tony Bradley gave you last night. I don't care about the rebounding situation. He was a threat. There are a lot more rebounds, I guess, to get now because nobody makes any shots. And we talked about that too. And certainly with the loss of Tyrese Halliburton, everything is disjointed. I mean, everything. Even with guys that are normally in there, it's disjointed. But you can be more impactful just by having to be dealt with. They have zero anybody in that trio of bigs right now that anybody else gives a crap about. I like him. I like Tony Bradley. But there's zero threat there. All right, 239-1070. I got that coming up. We got Stephen Holder coming up at the top of the hour. Win Schuler spreadability right here and right now for your snacking elite level. Original, sharp, bacon and cheddar, jalapeno pepper. That's a fan favorite. Find the spreadability of Win Schuler's. Find it at your favorite Meijer location. Find it at Neiman's Harvest Market and at Gordon's Food Service. And make sure you snap a photo if you find it someplace else and tell us where we can locate the spreadability of Win Schuler. Stephen Holder starts the hour with us next.
Ding dong.
93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
Dead air. I had to fill the dead air, James. What the hell?
Not really sure what happened right there.
Well, good.
Spotify got weird with me.
The late, great Chris Cornell right here, Rock and Roll Hall of Famers. Did you guys see online, Jim Carrey was the presenter of Soundgarden into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. I loved what he had to say about that. Soundgarden, of that particular era and rock bands, certainly of the alternative 90s grunge era, Soundgarden is my favorite. We miss the voice of Chris Cornell. You will hear the voice of Chris Cornell coming up on Saturday on B105.7. I promise you that. You'll hear the voice of Pete Futek of college football news because you need to be informed. IU number 2. We're going to be in Bloomington tomorrow. Kirkwood. That is going to be the number 1 option for you. The Upstairs Pub, Larceny Bourbon Locks, Luna Azul Tequila Shots, me, Brent Halverson, free sampling. Can you imagine free sampling going on at the Upstairs Pub with us tomorrow in Bloomington? It is can't miss for you. Now, the one thing is in week number 11, the Colts aren't a part of it. It is a bye week, but still we make our picks. Larceny Bourbon Locks, Luna Azul Tequila Shots tomorrow. The Upstairs Pub, it is a must-attend for you. All right, coming off an overtime win versus the Falcons and a long trip in Berlin. I'm assuming he is back stateside right now from ESPN and ESPN.com. Stephen Holder joins us. How was the overall experience for you in Berlin?
Fantastic. I didn't know what to expect. I've been to Europe a handful of times, but never Germany, and definitely not Berlin. And I got to say, I thought it was fantastic. It was, from everything I've heard, I was not in Frankfurt with the Colts a couple of years ago, but I heard this was vastly superior to that. Berlin is amazing. If you ever get a chance to go. It is an underrated city. I think it is It is one of the most vibrant cities in Europe, I believe, and just from a culture perspective, from just the people, the history. Oh my God! If you're into that, I mean, all around 10 out of 10, and a great game and great atmosphere as well. I've been to a few of these international games, and this one, it was just different. I feel like because of the atmosphere in that stadium, because of the history of the stadium, there was, I think there was an embrace of the Colts specifically because they have kind of been embedded in Germany for a bit now. So there was more of that than I expected, just in general, all of it. I mean, it was just fantastic, I got to say. Well done. What if you just wanted to go over there and drink beer and watch football? Could you covered that too? That is definitely encouraged.
Yes.
You might be surprised to learn they drink a fair amount of beer in Germany.
They do. Yes.
I was surprised. I was very surprised by that.
I cannot imagine the high caloric content of each of those beers. Probably.
That is true.
Yeah, that's probably. Now, did you partake? By the way, did you partake?
Oh, let me tell you, you can't help but partake. Listen, you can go. You're in the train station, and you go in the freaking. You go in the freaking convenience store.
Yeah.
And there's tall boys just sitting there. Oh. Just pick one up.
I love the tall boys reference by Stephen Holder right here. I'm really proud of you with that reference. Nice
I've listened
job.
to your show for a while.
Well, you definitely need to tune in tomorrow and Friday. Let me tell you that. We're going to get a little bit loose. There's no doubt about that. All right, the level of football, notwithstanding, you get a win because that's sure as hell better than a loss and losing 2 straight going into a bye week. So how do you deal with the obvious concern, and that is ball security from the quarterback and the protection that leads to the ball insecurity from the quarterback, which obviously has to be done? Yes.
He just dropped.
He did? Well, I was going to finish my question. Must have been the beer and the alcohol references right there, I guess. I thought that was an outstanding question. Let me rephrase when Stephen Holder of ESPN at ESPN.com rejoins us. James had a gap in Soundgarden and now a hang-up on the phone. What the hell's happening here in the 4 o'clock hour? He's ready to go again. Stephen Holder rejoins. I was talking about how do you go about concentrating on something that is obvious right now. In the last 2 weeks, we have seen Daniel Jones under siege and giving up the football. That cannot continue. How do they go about addressing that specifically here in this off week and leading up to Arrowhead coming up next week?
Now, it's a fair question. And look, 8-2 is amazing. Let's start with that, okay?
Sure.
I don't want to take that away. And no one's trying to. I mean, 8-2, in your wildest dreams, we weren't predicting this, right? So I think you, however, have to look at this with some reality if you want to keep it going. So that's the question at the bye week. How do we keep this going? And the only way you're going to keep it going if the Colts is to tighten up front. So it's not just the offensive line. I think Jones, I think the last 2 weeks, a little hesitation maybe. Let that thing fly a little quicker in some cases. Maybe have a little better pocket presence in other cases. I think there were some lapses in protection by the running backs. And looking at you, John Taylor, which is, really hard guy to criticize right now, but he had a couple breakdowns. And to his credit, he has been massively improved in that area. He was awful in the past. This year, he has put his mind to it, and has been a much better pass protector. So we need him to be what he was, I think, in the front half of the season. He's got to get back to that. But just overall, I just think they got to clean that up. If they don't clean that up, I don't know how you survive, say the likes of Kansas City and Seattle and, those teams that can, score with you and also come after you on defense. So they've got to pull that together. I mean, the way they got to their current record was by being very efficient, number one, and number two, just really protecting the quarterback and preventing turnovers. I mean, they were top 3 in turnover margin pretty much the whole season. And in 2 weeks, they've basically destroyed their turnover margin. It's crazy, right?
And in 2 weeks, it was a similar philosophy too, although different circumstances. In Pittsburgh, there was a level of desperation, and you had guys that have done it in the past. They were difference makers, as Watt and Highsmith normally have been. We have seen, but last week in Berlin, it was more like bringing the house. I mean, everything but the kitchen sink, and that really jacked up some things. And it takes Daniel Jones out of his comfort zone. I will say this, he made the play of the game. That scramble on third down saved the game. It made the fourth down reasonable. He hit Tyler Warren, and we know what happened after that. That was the game saver, that scramble. But they have to figure out something. And I don't know with this offensive line, the way that it is right now, if everybody continues to blitz, you got to figure something out as far as getting some rhythm passing back, because there was a real lack thereof in the past 2 weeks that was evident.
Yeah, and I think that's where I think Shane Steichen has to do his part. And he has it in him. There's no question about that. I think on the front half of the season, one of the things that I thought was just really something I marveled at was the ability of him to get guys wide open on the first read. It's like snap, boom, ball, out. And guys would be wide open. I don't know how he did it, but they need to get back to that. Easier said than done, granted. But I think it's gonna require maybe a calibration and coming up with some new schemes and play design. Maybe you're gonna have to come up with some stuff, man. And it really is an adjustment business. Look, defenses are adjusting to them. All right, they're figuring some things out. Give the defense credit. They are figuring things out. They've gone back to the lab and they said, we can't let these guys keep going up and down the field on us. We got to do something. The truth is, they're still going up and down the field on them, okay? I mean, they had 500 freaking yards in the game, okay? But what they're doing is they're being more disruptive and throwing them off and creating the turnovers. And that's where the Colts can't sustain. They can't sustain this if they keep doing that. So I said a lot there, but I agree with you. I think it's going to have to be – it's going to require an adjustment offensively. And if that leads to fewer yards, who cares? It's about protecting the football and letting the quarterback operate.
You're surprised Michael Pittman Jr. disappeared in Berlin Sunday?
Well, I would say I would be more bothered with it if the production wasn't coming from somewhere else, but it is. I really feel like the story for me is Alec Pierce. Alec Pierce, what he's doing, I don't think is being talked about enough. And I mean, I don't know if I can say this too loud, but there's some days where I'm like, all right, is Alec Pierce the number one receiver around here? I mean, it's a question that maybe should be asked. I'm not going to say it too loud, like I said, but all I'm saying is Alec Pierce is really doing some big things. Look, Pittman has made some big plays this year. He has gotten into the end zone like I've never seen him before, so kudos to him for that. But, this offense is going to ebb and flow, and different guys are going to get the ball at different times. Tyler Warren, spectacular performance, and I thought that was good to see from him because he'd been a little quiet maybe against Pittsburgh. But I really think that it's really going to be this way at times, where the ball is going to find different guys on different days. But again, I'll circle back to what I said. Alec Pierce I can't even imagine how much money he has made this year. That guy is playing his ass off.
So Stephen Holder from ESPN and ESPN.com, which is true. He's on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. This is in reference to Jonathan Taylor, who I have tagged as the MVP of the NFL right now. And I understand the running back situation and how normally it's going to go to the quarterback, and it probably still will. But I think he is the MVP. However, what do you take more in consideration if you're trying to make a run for the first time since 2012 and get an award to a running back and not a quarterback? Was it more glaring 45 yards on the ground in Pittsburgh or 244 on the ground against Atlanta in Berlin? What stands out more?
I think it's Berlin for me, and here's why. Because I think he was a victim of circumstance in Pittsburgh. That's what that was. Now, in Berlin, let me ask you this. How many times have you seen a football player, much less a running back, take over a game in that fashion? You know what that felt like to me? It felt like a basketball player in the fourth quarter where you're just like, hey, just give him the ball and get out of the way. It's like ISO ball.
Right.
Give him the ball, get out of the way, let him go get a bucket. That's what Jonathan Taylor did on Sunday. In football, it's not supposed to happen in football. And that's what happened. That's what you saw. I mean, overtime, 7, I believe, offensive snaps, 6 runs with Jonathan Taylor. I mean, even for Shane Steichen, who loves throwing that football. He's not even he doesn't even try to lie to you. That guy loves to throw the ball. And even he was like, all right, we can't screw this up. Just give it to JT. And I just thought it was an unbelievable performance. Again, I thought he took the game over, and I don't know how many times I've seen that from a running back or a football player in general, but a running back specifically. I mean, that was I thought a performance for the ages. We're gonna remember that, I think, for a long time if this ends up being a special season.
Stephen Holder joins us. What do you think about the debut of Sauce Gardner?
I thought Sauce was just fine. And look, I know that image of him falling down against Drake London in the end zone on that 2-point conversion, I know that people will maybe latch on to that. First off, I mean, falling down is a thing. It's okay. But I would say this. They weren't going after him out there, You didn't see that. They went after some other guys, maybe. But they weren't going after him. If nothing else, he makes the quarterback think twice. And they haven't had that. They just haven't. Not on the outside. They have it at times with Kenny Moore in there, and maybe if the safety's over the top in the right spot, I think the safeties have played pretty well this year. But they haven't had that from the perimeter corners when they've had injuries out there. And he gave them a guy who makes the quarterback have to think twice. So I love it, and I think you got to keep it in perspective. I mean, this is the first game, obviously, but also the first game on the heels of a week that was just really excruciating for him. And I thought he was pretty honest about that after the game in saying that, this was a really tough week for me. And I think we underestimate just, what is required of a guy to just, pick up your life and change everything at the drop of a hat. And then, oh, by the way, go to another continent and play a football game. I mean, for him to do all that and still play, I thought, a respectable game, I think you got to feel like that's very promising. So once he gets coached up and he's got the bye week now, he can exhale. He can get some time with the playbook. I think Sauce Gardner's going to be just fine.
So what's the inbound ETA of Charvarius Ward? Is that expected coming off the bye week? Because I think everybody's really waiting on what this whole secondary is going to look like with everybody involved once everybody indeed is healthy.
Right. I think that's a great point. I think there's a chance after the bye. There's a chance. I've seen him, out there working. He made the trip, which is a good sign, to Berlin. Saw him out there on the field. So I get the sense that he's close. I'm just giving you, my feeling of my observation. I can't say for sure, but I mean, he's out there on the field at practice and doing stuff and moving around pretty good. So he doesn't look like a guy who is a long way away, whatever that looks like. So I think that could be close. I mean, we got a week and a half. We got about 10 days or so. I think there's a decent shot for Kansas City, but I'm not going to promise that yet. Let's see what we get a week from today. But I think the odds are at least decent that he's out there. And that would be a game changer, I think, especially with the absence of DeForest Buckner, which, I mean, you can't overstate that. And I thought we saw the trickle-down effect of that right away in the first game without him. No question about it, right? But that is what it is. But getting Charvarius Ward back, that would be a huge step in the right direction, and that would help them, sort of get back on track and at least stem the bleeding a little bit from losing Buckner.
This is my assumption that anybody that has a bad game as a kicker will now have the specter, the shadow, if you will, of Justin Tucker above them. And I don't know if anybody's going to have that consideration. I don't know if the Colts, I doubt the Colts would have that particular consideration, but how solid are they? And was that a true shot of redemption for Michael Badgley in those closing moments on Sunday in Berlin?
So right now, the understanding is that they are not looking to make a change at kicker. They're standing pat at kicker. Let's just put it that way. I do think that he is week to week to a degree, because kickers in general are, right? If you're not a franchise kicker, if you will, you're kind of week to week. Let's be honest, right? It's a fleeting position. A couple bad games, and they're having workouts looking for the next guy. That's just how it is. So he's got to, I think he's got to show a little more consistency. There's no question about that. I mean, they get to when they get to about the 50-yard field goal mark, for the most part, Shane Steichen is staying really aggressive there. And I think the reality is part of that aggression is because he doesn't have faith in the kicking game. So, yeah, I think if he gives them reason, they will have to rethink it. But for this week, at least, they are not. So let's see what the future holds.
Do you think they would consider Tucker, given the circumstances, or any circumstances where they would give that consideration?
I think probably not. And here's why. I mean, I think there's good vibes right now, and I mean, who knows, right? If you're desperate enough, anything's on the table. But I think there's good vibes, a lot of goodwill. That would threaten those good vibes, I think. Regardless, I'm not making a judgment on the guy. I don't know what he did and didn't do, right? None of us do. That's not the point, though. The issue is you then turn the attention to something else. And do we really want that if you're the Colts? I don't know. I don't know that you do. Is that really worth the squeeze, especially when he was declining before his departure? So I don't know. I don't know that they would be willing to shake things up in that manner right now. So I'm not sure they agree that would pay off. But who knows? Well, if you get desperate enough, like I said, anybody's liable to try anything.
So Stephen Holder on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. So the eligibility to return, I believe, is on December the 14th. DeForest Buckner, will he? I mean, are you confident that he will return at some point this year? Because when we're talking about a neck injury, that is always one where you go, uh-oh, how bad is this really going to be? What's your feel on that situation?
So, I mean, am I confident? I wouldn't say I'm confident. I would say that they believe he'll be back, but I don't know enough about what's going on with that neck to say that I also believe. So I think we got to wait and see. I will say I know DeForest Buckner, and I know that if there's any chance that he can come back, he'll be back. But, you know, when you talk about a neck and, you know, I think all bets are off depending on what we're talking about, right? I mean, that's the thing. We don't know the nature of it. I just don't know enough of the nature of the injury to really speculate. But all I can tell you is the Colts seem relatively confident he will be back. Will it be 4 weeks? That I don't know. But they seem pretty confident. I will say putting DeForest Buckner on injured reserve says something, because I've seen that man play through just debilitating pain. And to the point where when he's on the injury report from week to week, I shrug. And I say, all right, yeah, he's questionable, but, like, what are we even talking about? It's DeForest Buckner. He's going to play. You know, so for him to get placed on IR, it struck a nerve with me, because I'm like, all right, well, this must really be bad, because that he would not take that lying down.
That's so impactful, too. I mean, among the players that you really never want to do without, he's certainly at the top of that list. Go ahead.
I don't think enough people around the country understand how good of a football player he is.
Yeah. No, and especially, again, how impactful him being missing from this team is. It's certainly something you see. It's very easy to see. In closing here with Stephen Holder, Chiefs and Broncos. What's the better win-loss path here? The Broncos to get tagged with a third loss, this one at home, or the Chiefs at 5-4 to get tagged with their fifth loss and then get the Colts coming up after the Colts bye week? Where should the Colts fans lean coming up Sunday afternoon?
That's a great question. I almost think. Yeah, all right. Let's see if I can.
Well, you got the tie break over Denver, so I mean, but if they win and you lose, I mean, it's funny. I mean, you could damage, and I mean big time damage, KC if they lose back-to-back games in this situation here.
Let me tell you this. Let me say this. Who are you more terrified of in January? I know my answer.
Yeah, no question about that.
It's Kansas City. And I know. They haven't played great, okay? But guess what? They didn't play great last year, okay? And January got here, and it was like, here they come. So, I mean, I'm not going to say they were like pedestrian last year. They weren't. But I don't know that anybody thought they were a lock to go to the Super Bowl at all. They weren't playing great down the stretch at all, if you recall. And like I said, they got to the playoffs, and Mahomes said, this is my time. Okay? And that's what he does, right? I don't want to see that man in January. That's all I'm saying. And if the season ended today, they would not be in the show. So if you're the Colts, they're trying to make this your year, okay? They've for the most part, I think, they hope they don't have to deal with Burrow. The Ravens, I don't know. We'll see if the Ravens become a thing or not. Josh Allen and the Bills are trying to figure it out.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't know
exactly.
I don't know what's going on with there. So all I'm saying is this could be a really unique year where you don't have to face the killers of the AFC. So, hey, that's the way I'd see it. I'd take my chances with Bo Nix any day of the week.
That is Stephen Holder of ESPN and ESPN.com on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. Man, I appreciate you hopping on this Wednesday. I'm glad you had a great time in Berlin. Sounds fun.
Yeah, absolutely. Highly recommend.
All right, buddy. We'll do it again next week. Thank you.
All right, see ya.
Stephen Holder, ESPN, ESPN.com. Chiefs Broncos this weekend. We'll pick the games tomorrow at the Upstairs Pub in Bloomington. Larceny Bourbon Locks, Luna Azul Tequila Shots. Angle this, Colts fans. Chiefs or Broncos, 425 coming up on Sunday afternoon. Which would be more beneficial for the Colts? In this case, which team loses would be more beneficial? 239-1070. Calls on the other side. Pete Futek coming up in the 5 o'clock hour. College football news. IU, second in the playoff picture. We'll go over all that with Pete and then some coming up at the top of the hour. The Stream the App HD Radio. Time for your calls at 239-1070. That is on the other side. AAA Membership Lounge via YouTube Live. Don't go anywhere. It's 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
Idiot in the dictionary. You know what you'll find?
Picture me?
No! The definition of the word idiot, which you f***ing are.
93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
I have time for calls right now, 239-1070. In fact, till the top of the hour, Pete Futek talks college football with us top of the hour. IU basketball later on tonight. IU at home against Milwaukee. That's a 7 o'clock tip time down in Bloomington. That means 6 o'clock, I think, right across the hall at 93 WIBC. Pacers embarrassing defensively last night. They lose in Utah. One win on the season, if that wasn't bad enough. And we kind of understand with the personnel and the lack of normalcy with that roster, fine. But 152 against Utah and Salt Lake City is inexcusable last night. They fire things up tomorrow night. Close out that 4-game Western Road swing. 9 o'clock in Phoenix, so assuming 8:30 your coverage begins here on 93.5 and 107.5. The Fan coming up tomorrow night. Butler a winner last night at home. Boilermakers, Alabama tomorrow night in Tuscaloosa. And Bobby Riddell, the Boilermaker Radio Network, on the show a little bit earlier. Trey Kaufman-Wren available to play tomorrow night for the Boilermakers on the road against Alabama. And, of course, the Colts are off this weekend. So you get to sit back, relax, and watch other teams battle. The question I had, Kansas City or Denver? In Denver this weekend. Where's your angle? Where's your lean? Terry Jones says Kansas City was 15-2 a year ago. Nicely put. Chiefs of the Broncos, doesn't matter come playoff time. Colts would lose to both of them. Batty Matt. Great. JMV, I would like to see the Chiefs beat Denver and then the Colts turn around and beat KC. I just think it'd be really difficult for the Chiefs to lose 2 games in a row. It's a Gator and Ligotti. Also, shout out to Bar Reeve. I saw where Bar Reeve, the Vikings, won the state volleyball title over the weekend. Held down at Cambridge Fieldhouse. Well done, Bar Reeve. Saw Bradley Beal. Bradley Beal spent all those seasons, high-dollar player in Phoenix, and kind of became an albatross there, certainly. Ends up with the Clippers. He has a hip fracture, season-ending surgery, according to Shams. Bradley Beal, done for this campaign. True story. JMV, at this point, I'm rooting for 1-81 so they can find Tim Duncan like the Spurs did when David Robinson was injured. Casey mentions this. Last night, the Pacers had enough healthy personnel to beat or at least play even with a bad and shorthanded Jazz team. That was the first game all season that really worried me in terms of their effort and overall level of play. I can't blame that at all on the injuries. Casey, you and I are in lockstep on that, brother. It was embarrassing. I don't care what personnel was out there. That was awful last night, and that is not at all what anybody should expect. 24, this is a shout out to the Upstairs Pub who just sent this. 24 hours from right now, we'll welcome in the Fan and JMV for a live show. The Upstairs Pub. Larceny Bourbon Locks, Luna Azul Tequila Shots. Week number 11 is at the Upstairs Pub. Now, you guys are asking if my mom's going to make an appearance. I don't know yet. I do, however, know that if she does go, I don't know if I can balance everything that's going to be going on there. So we shall see. And a shout out to the Upstairs Pub who said if she did make an appearance, which would be her first at a live show, that they would take a photo and put it up on their wall of fame, which is pretty awesome. But I cannot wait to see everybody down there tomorrow. Notoriously speaking, Thursdays in Bloomington are awesome. Thursdays at the Upstairs Pub, always awesome. Really, any day at the Upstairs, awesome. I'd love to see everybody down there tomorrow. Let me see. We got some specials going by, right? Swing by for $3 drinks and drafts and plenty of Hoosier football and basketball conversation. And you know this to be true. With me and Brent Halverson there, that means free sampling. And I think you guys understand the whole sampling behavior that we provide. Can't miss upstairs in Bloomington tomorrow. That's going to be a blast. Randy from Greenwood writes in this on the text line. We already have the tiebreaker over Denver, so I would assume the best thing to do for the Colts is see the Broncos beat KC. Got a lot more to get to coming up in a minute. Nick writes this, please don't entertain the Crows that call their B team at best losers after they give us so damn much joy just months ago. No, I'm not entertaining the trolls. I just can't have that. You can't have that effort last night defensively. That can't be excused no matter the circumstances. Just can't. 239-1070. Promise calls. Bill's going to start out on this show. Hello, Bill. How are you?
Doing great. Hey, yeah, that was a brutal late night watch last night. But defensively, the only thing I can say is Rick Carlisle and that staff, they definitely have their work cut out for him. But if anybody can get it done, he can. So I'm putting all my faith right now in the coaching staff because the product of putting that on the floor isn't necessarily something you want to do jumping jacks behind.
And you're right, Bill. And I'm willing to excuse a lot of it because of the lack of personnel. But that last night was terrible. There was one, and I thought Casey Simpson, who just sent me a message when he mentioned that was the first time where you really thought that, maybe effort and want to was not a part of the equation, and that it can't be that way. It just can't.
Yeah, you're right. It definitely can't. And tomorrow night when they go into Phoenix, you've got a guy that's torched them repeatedly, Devin Booker. He's always run roughshod, and that nut punching Grayson Allen is leading the NBA, and he's leading the NBA in 3-point shooting. Believe it or not.
So I think Ben Shepherd is like the bottom of the NBA in 3-point shooting, isn't? So they're going to have the top 3-point shooter and the worst 3-point shooter. I think coming up tomorrow night.
In the valley, man. Boy, I tell you. But I want to say one thing about IU football, specifically about Wisconsin. I have had a bad feeling in my stomach since the Barry Alvarez days when he used to coach Wisconsin. Because what that guy would do, and he was also the athletic director at Wisconsin, what he would do was he would schedule cupcakes at the beginning of each year and then expect that he was going to lose 2 games in the Big Ten, maybe to Michigan, Ohio State, probably. And then on the back end of his schedule, he always had IU the second to last game. The last game was against Minnesota. I think they play for like a brown jug or something like that as the trophy they play for. But there was one year where Barry Alvarez ran up the score and beat IU 73-0. That might have been during Bill Lynch's tenure.
Hey, is Danny O'Neill of Cathedral still their starter?
I believe he is. Yes, he is. As far as I know, I'll have to check on that. But Wisconsin has always been a tough game for IU, and I know they're going to be ready for it. And then, even though I don't like to do this, just jumping ahead just a little bit, that Purdue game's not going to be any cakewalk. I mean, there are times when there have been blowouts in that series, but Indiana's going to go to West Lafayette and they're going to play, and that's going to be the Super Bowl for that Purdue team this year is when IU comes into town. So you can't sleep on Purdue either. I've seen them. I remember one year where IU was playing for a chance to go to a bowl game, and then Rod Woodson beat IU by himself back. I think I was in the 90s.
Hey, by the way, I wanted to update you. I think Danny O'Neill was injured, and I was looking at his numbers. I know he had been the starter, but I think he was injured in the Washington game. So he played at San Diego State, if you remember. Played also at Cathedral. So he was. I don't know, James. See if you can find his stat.
He was a state champ, wasn't he?
Hey, Billy, thank you for the call, man. I appreciate that. James, see if you can find that. Billy, hopefully I see you at the back 9 coming up on Friday, too. I want to see Gritty tomorrow. Southern Indiana represents. Vanderburgh County going to be in the house if the upstairs will be tomorrow, Grit? You going to be there? James, can you put the phone call up? Thank you. Hello, Gritty.
Hey, it's going to be beautiful weather tomorrow.
Oh, I can't wait. You going to be there with me?
I plan on showing up. I'm going to go to your gig, and then I'm going to go see the Kurt Signetti coach's show after that.
Oh, yeah. That's at Hoosier Hanks, I think, right?
Yes, it is.
Well done.
It should be a great time tomorrow. Going to God's country.
I'm telling you. Are you going to come up the Redneck Audubon just to see us?
Well, yes, of course.
I can't wait. Hey, Gritty, I can't wait to see you. I've got some cocktails. You know that to be true.
I'll be ready.
All right, Gritty.
Yes.
We'll see you tomorrow.
Have a
Upstairs
great night.
Pub. Gritty's going to be there. Yeah, Danny O'Neill's actually caught it off the field and into the locker room. James, you looked that up too?
Yep. Yeah, he was carted off. I'm not seeing if he will be back.
I know of. Yeah, I just have seen where I didn't know if Fickle has had an update. Luke Fickle being their head coach.
Say the last thing I'm seeing on Danny O'Neill is from about 3 days ago, so I don't know if they've had an update on him yet.
And I guess he's been quarterback too here recently. Was he the starter? I haven't been paying attention enough to Wisconsin to know whether or not he's been starting. I know he started out the season as the starter. He did not. Let's see where this goes back to. The Washington game is where he got injured, and that was last Saturday. I believe he was on this show, if memory serves, early on, I think, when he was at San Diego State. Pete Futek, college football news, top of the hour. IU and Wisconsin, that's coming up at noon on Saturday. Danny was playing great, got hurt the second quarter, torn Achilles, out for the rest of the year. Thank you, Eddie White. I know he was the initial starter. And that's too bad. I want to say San Diego State, he had a nice first. I can't remember if it was before his first game there or after, but he was on this show before. Cathedral High School. Danny O'Neill, that's too bad to hear. You hate to hear that. Quick break, we'll come back. We got Pete Futek coming up at the top of the hour. More on that, more on whatever you want to hit coming up in the 5 o'clock hour. Just make sure you're with us coming up tomorrow on Kirkwood at the Upstairs Pub. Larceny Bourbon Locks, Luna Azul Tequila Shots. Sit tight, 93.5, 107.5 The Fan.
One question for you. What color is an orange? Ted, you bonehead. Its color is the same as its name, just like a lemon.
93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
Text line at 317-239-1070. Mike in Brooklyn says the Chiefs' win is best get 2-game lead for 2 seed. Got to stay ahead of the old friends, the Patriots, for the 1 seed. Based on schedule, they have the inside track. Root for the Jets. Yeah, by the way, you do have the Patriots. I'm sorry. Yes, the Patriots and the Jets coming up tomorrow night. Thursday night football is going to get everything officially underway. Foxborough in week number 11. I'm telling you, it is a benefit if you have a team this late in the season with a bye week. You can sit back, especially if you sit at 8-2. No matter how you played in the past 2, you split. Things to work on, things to work out. Schedule gets tougher. Questions regarding DeForest Buckner. We talked to Stephen Holder about that a little bit earlier. Podcast on 1075thefan.com. The next situation makes you wonder. It does. His availability's never been questioned. He's eligible to come back on December the 14th. Hopefully he can, but when you start talking about next, that is problematic. And let me tell you this. When you look around the landscape of this football team, that is certainly an individual that is essential personnel. A lot of things teams feel better about offensively doing, running the football, sidestepping pressure or lack thereof if DeForest Buckner is not a part of it. And then we talked about Michael Badgley, too. I think Stephen Holder mentioned it's kind of a week-to-week situation. I would have to look up, and he did mention, because you're always going to have now that shadow, because yesterday we did learn, I think it was Tom Pelissero that had, Justin Tucker is now reinstated and eligible to be signed by any team in the NFL. Stephen Holder had mentioned, and obviously we ended up getting questions about that here, and Stephen had mentioned that there was a bit of a fall-off from him anyway. But it will be interesting to see if anybody out there ends up giving him a chance at the end of this year. Now, what you saw in Badgley in Berlin on Sunday was a redemption. At the start, wasn't good. You miss an extra point. You're short on a 53-yarder. But evidently, there's no thought in doing anything different right now. But it is interesting to note that Tucker is eligible to be signed, if that piques your interest. And clearly it did, because a lot of you asked me about that. JMV, most definitely better the Colts, or for the Colts, if KC wins against Denver. You really don't want to face any team after a loss, especially when they have you in their building, because they are more desperate. It's Gary in Cape Coral, Florida. Gary, thank you for listening and your participation right there. Appreciate you. JMV, if we want to avoid KC, we want them to win the division and not be a wild card. I want the Broncos to lose. Would rather host Denver than be hosting Kansas City. JMV, this is a Pacers tank job. There is no Pacers tank job going on. They just played awful defense last night. And I guess the irony here is that was kind of the old offense. Shot making was there. And he thought maybe, oh, wow. Early on in that game, he thought, oh, wow, here it is. And then they just couldn't stop a nosebleed last night. That's when we all get mad, and that's when you guys should be critical. Otherwise, you kind of understand being without essential personnel, being without your normal guys. But they got McConnell back. He was on a minutes restriction, but they knocked down shots but could not guard their own shadow. Man, that's problematic. Yeah, that's not the type of effort that we're supposed to be seeing or certainly what this team, what this organization was about, surrendering 152 in Salt Lake City last night. Pete Futek on the other side. College football news, Win Schuler's spreadability right here and right now. If you love elite level snacking, Win Schuler's provides that for you. Original sharp cheddar, bacon and cheddar, and jalapeno pepper. That's the spreadability of Win Schuler's crackers, chips. Even put that on a grilled burger, and you will love it. Win Schuler's spreadability, your favorite Meijer location, Gordon's Food Service, and Neiman's Harvest Market in Carmel. Win Schuler's, Pete Futek, college football news on the other side. You and I also the rest of the way at 239-1070. IU at home tonight versus Milwaukee. That's at 7 o'clock. 6 o'clock, your coverage begins with Don Fisher, the IU Radio Network across the hall, 93 WIBC. Quick break. Back with you next. 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
And I'm not normal. 93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
Bloomington tomorrow. The Upstairs Pub with Larceny Bourbon Locks and Luna Azul Tequila Shots. I would expect to see everybody there, man. We want to have a party on a Thursday on Kirkwood in Bloomington, and why not? Perfect location to do that. Of course, tonight you have IU and Milwaukee in Bloomington. That's hoop. Coming off that Marquette win on Sunday. Tucker DeVries joined us on Monday. That podcast at 1075thefan.com. We're at the Upstairs Pub tomorrow. IU football prior to the bye week, and then the bucket game. IU gets Wisconsin at noon coming up on Saturday. Meantime, of the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline to help us sort out a lot of the possibilities, the scenarios of what is remaining in the college football regular season. Pete Futek is joining us now of College Football News. Hello, Pete. How are you?
I'm doing just fine. How you guys doing? You got gifts from the gods with this IU team happening for you here, and Jonathan Taylor. It's pretty heady stuff for sports radio, I'm guessing, right now.
It is absolutely incredible. It is the gift that keeps on giving. And one of the reasons why I love it, because you get like the rest, the elite level, I call it the grandfathered in college football nation that's out there. You know, your normal SEC team or Ohio State. You get all these elite level, consistently in the past, annual high-level teams that all feel like the Kurt Cignetti and this Hoosier program, they're infiltrators and don't belong, and I love that.
Yeah, it's hilarious when, like, you kind of do deep dives on this, and, like, I've kind of been a defender where, you know, all the screaming and moaning last year about the IU schedule, well, it's not their fault that Michigan and Washington were bad. Those are the two teams that played for the national title the year before. And this year, look, you know, you're getting through, you know, what you're getting through, and if it was so easy, everyone would do it. But, look, if you're in the Big Ten and you're still undefeated, you're doing something right no matter what.
Do you believe in the college football rankings the way they came out again this week? Do you buy that?
Yeah, fine. Doesn't matter. I mean, like, look, I worked with you guys for years from the start. I've been through the process and worked at Grapevine, all that kind of stuff. I mean, you have to remember how they work. It's not like the AP and coaches polls. Everyone's like, oh, well, this team goes up, this team loses, goes down. No, they throw it out and they start from scratch, and they argue each and every point. So they will. It's almost like a conference tiebreaker argued at each spot. So at 25, you have three teams that they're arguing over, and they say, okay, this team beat this team, blah, 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 there's 25, and they go right up to one. And then it all gets thrown out the next week, and then none of it matters because at the very end, what they care about is, did you win your conference championship? And did you get to at least 10 wins? You know, so really, if you've done this, if you're not at 10 wins, you know, even like the Texases of the world, you don't even get to the bouncer. You're not getting past. Not this year. And again, what they're going to do is they care about, do you win your conference championship? And they're not going to punish. I think is the wrong way to do it, but this is how they're doing it. At least last year, they're not going to punish you if you lose your conference championship. So to put it for IU. Look, if it's 12-0 Indiana versus 12-0 Ohio State for the Big Ten championship, well, the winner's going to be the number one seed. The loser's probably going to get the 4 and still get a bye that first week. So as long as you get to 12-0 Indiana, you're probably okay to get a bye that first week.
So Pete Futek, College Football News, kind enough to join us on this Wednesday afternoon on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. So we saw what happened at Penn State. Do you take anything at all away from the accomplishments of IU because Penn State, they're in a down season? Because I guess, Pete, I explained it this way. All right, Penn State's in a down season, but when you're in their place, they played well in Columbus the week prior in the first half. And when you're a team like that and you still have some good players, just not overall a great team, you're going to have moments, maybe a series, maybe a quarter, maybe a half. And I thought that Penn State had some of those moments. And in a season like IU's trying to put together from start to finish, you have signature moments where you have to rescue yourself. And I felt that was that signature moment for IU. But do you take anything away because they had to do what they did against a team that is far on the outside looking in like Penn State?
Yeah, no, because it's, again, you kind of touched on it. I mean, it's still, if it's not the most talented team they've played so far, it's second. I mean, This was supposed to be your year. I mean, Penn State. I mean, you could see it with Michigan 2 years ago, where they paid their dues, they were close, and they had everything in place in terms of talent, in terms of experience. Last year, even with the losses, Ohio State was the best team in the country. No one was touching that team in the playoffs, so that was pretty obvious. And this year was Penn State. They had everybody coming back. They were loaded from a team that got to the Final Four last year. I know you do have to get there and all that. And there's still a lot of guys there who were really good. So I'm a little more concerned about the close call at Iowa. I get it, but I get that, Indiana, if you can't hit the curveball on the right day, you have the Illinois game where Illinois had no defensive backs and they obviously schemed wrong and Indiana just took them out. But the Iowa game's a little more indicative where it's like, okay, well, that was a struggle. I know Iowa goes Iowa. But still, you're undefeated. It's as long as you don't completely face plant over the next 2 weeks, which Indiana won't. You're in the Big Ten championship. That's going to be a blast in Indianapolis against Ohio State. And you get your cut. And even so, the one thing you don't want in all this is to go into the Big Ten championship and lose and not get a top 4 seed. That's the worst of all possible worlds, because then you got an extra game. You got to host a game, but it's not like you're going to get anybody easy, because that 10, 11, 12, that's going to be either a dangerous South Florida team, an offense which was good enough to beat Florida, or Notre Dame, or maybe even Miami. So you do not want that 5 if you're you or Ohio State. You just want the 4, and you probably get there through 12-0.
So, Pete, few texts on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. Again, it's still a ways away, still a lot of season to be played here down the stretch. But Mendoza v. Sayin, how would you size up those two QBs in overall season and where they are right now, productivity-wise and then Heisman Trophy-wise?
Heisman Trophy-wise, it's not fair. But remember, the Heisman Trophy is it's a popularity contest. In my really pretentious way, I vote for kind of who's the guy for the season, who's the combination of most valuable, most outstanding. And yes, I'm the guy who did not have Travis Hunter on my ballot last year because Shedeur Sanders was the best player on the team, and Cam Scatabo was even better in the Big 12 than Hunter was, and more important. But it's hard to kind of say, in terms of most valuable, most outstanding. Well, there's your drive from Mendoza, where he goes Tom Brady and, pulls it out of the fire against Penn State with some of those throws. So right now, he was kind of my guy before all this. The thing about Sayin, and it's not fair, but he is throwing to NFL starting wide receivers and playing behind an NFL starting offensive line and with an NFL defense that can clean up all the messes. So he can just kind of go back there and sling it. So I don't think Sayin is in it as much, at least on my ballot, as it would be on Mendoza. But, we're going to see, because it comes down to, did you win your conference championships, and how does Mendoza do against Ohio State when it really matters the most? And that's really where it's going to come down to it for the Heisman.
Hey, Pete, how do you size up Notre Dame at this point? At 7-2, I think, as of the playoff bracket, ninth seed, the ninth, again, as of last night. But how do you size up the Irish and ultimately where, if they continue to win, which is expected right here, they can get?
Yeah, but first of all, I heard your voice, so I'm a crusade. Do not look at that bracket when they do that in ESPN. It's absolutely, utterly worthless, because it's going by right now, and none of it's right, because it's all going to completely change once the conference championships are over. So after the conference championships, the 1 seed's almost certainly going to be the Big Ten champ. Second, number 2 is going to be SEC. 3 is going to be Big 12 champ, and it's Texas Tech, and go from there. The thing to keep in mind, if you're a Notre Dame fan, the key team in all this is going to be Pitt, because the Irish play Pitt this weekend. That's their only tough game left. They win that, they go 10-2, and they should be fine. Pitt also plays Miami in Pittsburgh in late November. Last year, Miami had it all there for the taking, and they face-planted against Syracuse. So that's the tough one. So if Miami can get by that, then what probably happens, this is what kind of Irish fans need to kind of be ready for, is in the penultimate rankings or whatever, they could be like 7th. And then in the final rankings, be 11th. because what might happen is if South Florida does what it's supposed to do, it's going to win the American Athletic Conference and be in. And if Notre Dame does what it's supposed to do and gets 10-2, it's going to be in. And then you got to put Miami, who just destroyed South Florida and beat Miami. Then Miami get 10-2 would get that like 10th seed or so. So Notre Dame might drop, but it won't matter. I am all in on this Irish team. It is better than last year's team. It's a lot healthier, better quarterback situation. Even though Riley Leonard was great, the running back tandem is the best in the country. They got to get the Noah Burnett right, and they got to get that kicking game okay. But right now, there are only a couple teams out there that can get in the tournament but can actually do some damage. I think if you just get Notre Dame in, they're in the Final Four.
Who is outside of this top four as we know it right now? Who's the most dangerous? Would it be Notre Dame in your opinion?
Georgia. The SEC's kind of overblown and overrated this year. I'm not sold on Alabama at all. Kind of a one-trick pony. They are Washington of a couple of years ago. Ole Miss, fine, but it's a beatable team when the kind of the fast-paced offense gets slowed for a little bit. Their defense is going to die in the playoffs. But Georgia is kind of coming together at the right time, where they struggled a little bit early on, but now they're starting to figure out their defense a little bit. They're starting to finally generate some sort of a pass rush, and it's like they're growing into the season. Gunnar Stockton's starting to play a little bit better. They're a little more explosive, talent-wise and pedigree, and because it's Georgia, that's the one team out there that, again, I think Notre Dame can get there and do some damage and be in this thing. But that's the one team out there that I think could probably hang toe-to-toe with Ohio State and pull that off.
So, Pete Futek, you've been covering college football for a while, and I'm sure that this whole IU thing with Curt Cignetti has sideswiped you, much like it has everybody else, in a good way. And I constantly talk about where we are in the landscape of college athletics right now, because IU has the resources and they have the coach, and I call it the Midas touch. I don't know if that's meaningful in any way. That's just how I describe it, in bringing players in, whether they were his own or new, that fits what he wants to do on both sides of the football. So what most impresses you about Curt Cignetti and what he has done in Bloomington, and do you believe, much like I believe, this to be sustainable?
Sustainable to a point. Now, I went to Wisconsin back in the 80s when there were like 123 teams in college football. In the SAG ratings, they were 127 because they lost to a couple of Division I AA teams. And then I was there when Alvarez started. So I kind of saw firsthand how this kind of works when you get the right guy and the right systems and you can buy in and everything kind of works. And then for 20 years, 25 years after that, Wisconsin had the right system where they recruited to a type, but the problem became they didn't quite get the superstar guys. You could only go so far. They were always the program that, for a while, I think they've changed this year, they're the program that's won the most games in among the Power 5 conferences since the start of the college football playoff without getting in, because they always ran into that Ohio State wall, or the wall of the team that just had the 5-star guys that you just couldn't get past. That's the thing Indiana's going to have to prove it can do. The scheme's great. The coaching is absolutely peerless. But having that works fine, and certainly on the right day, you can beat anybody in the country. But in a college football playoff now, it's not like the NCAA tournament. You can't just get hot from three and end up in the Elite Eight. You're going to have to deal with a Georgia or an Ole Miss or a Notre Dame or an Alabama, then an Ohio State. There is no weeks off anymore, not compared to last year. So I do think that they're going to be good, but we're going to see how this scheme works and how the talent fits within this. And here's the thing. I'm not dogging this in any way. Yeah, Indiana has money. It doesn't have the huge money yet. That might be coming because of all the Big Ten stuff happening with hedge funds and all that sort of thing. I keep saying, and I'm going on a lot of radio shows myself, Cignetti's buyout's only $15 million. If you're LSU or you're Florida and you really want to do this, go buy out Cignetti and pay him $20 million a year. There's not that much money to go get him. I don't think it'll happen. But we will see, because he and Lane Kiffin, those are the two hot guys right now, and everyone still wants them.
See, what's interesting to me about this is I think that IU is in a great position because they have the resources. And then I think now to get players, this has become a place. It almost feels like, and I'm sure that there are some relatables here, maybe not all, but it almost seems like the evolution that we saw, and not at the very beginning, not the early stages of Gonzaga in basketball, but where we saw them once Gonzaga broke through. Now they're each and every year a power. And it doesn't matter a damn bit that they're in Spokane, Washington, because the talent, the resources, they're going to find their way there because, there is belief. And all that encompasses, I think, building a sustainable elite-level program. And I think that's where we see IU football right now at those stages. And I think week after week, it only helps get them even more noticed and for others to go, oh, wow, you know what? It'd be okay. I can get paid and be a part of this with that ever-changing college athletic landscape. I think IU's going to be here to stay for a while. I do.
Without question, but at the same time, Gonzaga hasn't won a national championship. So we'll see. And look, you absolutely, and here's to you, and you made the right point before, it's not necessary in today's day and age, it's, the five-star guys are always great. You're never going to out-recruit Ohio State. You're never going to out-recruit Alabama, Georgia, and that's where, the sustainability is great to be very, very good, but to, national championship good, which it sounds crazy. We're talking, high-level problems here. But you're dead on right when finding the right guys. I'm not even going to try pronouncing his name. You already did right with one quarterback from Cal. But you're going to get this guy JKS that's just his initials, from Cal. This left-handed kid who's now swinging it around at Berkeley. That's your next fit for this thing. So, now especially Mendoza being in the Heisman race, if you're a quarterback, yeah, you want to play this system. If you're a playmaker or receiver, Surratt's amazing. He might win the Biletnikoff if it's not Jeremiah Smith. You can come to Indiana and you can produce pretty big because, you want to be a part of the system. And the overall point is these guys also want to be a part of a winner. Signetti's a winner. He was right. He's never lost wherever he's been. All these college coaches, elite college coaches always have, they build their resumes up, but there's always a blip here and there. There's no blip anywhere on the Signetti record. At every stop, he's always won. He's always figured it out. And so, he's, cocky and arrogant and all that kind of stuff. Well, yeah, you can cocky when you're that good. So great. Have fun with it. It's awesome.
Well, and I would also suggest this. What he has right now is a formula from, what he does with his personnel and picks a team, as I referenced earlier, and then how he schedules to best benefit the situation. And then obviously IU has discovered that if you build it, as he has with this program, they will come. And so will the finances come. And I think that this is so much different now than what it used to be. And I get what you're saying. They're never going to out-recruit Ohio State or this or that. But I think it's more necessary now to pick the right players to benefit for those particular moments that you just described, and to also, as long as you possibly can, maintain your assistant coaches too, which have played also a significant role into what he has accomplished. I just think right now, I think that you can maintain with what you have because the whole landscape of college athletics is so different, and I think you see IU taking advantage of that.
Yeah, it's fun. Look, we're talking about winning a national championship in Indiana in football. Forget that. Look at the 150-ish year history of college football. 5 schools have won all this. Princeton back in the day, or Michigan, Ohio State, and Alabama. Winning a national championship in college football is impossible. But who cares? It's a lot of fun to have fun every Saturday, and you have a team that you can, that you make, college football Saturdays in Bloomington are a big thing now, and so that's of course a big thing. Now, this is going to be a fascinating college football the next few weeks because the test cases are going to be Indiana and Texas Tech because they're direct points. is if you can combine the two. Like Signetti's obviously, one of ones in terms of like coaching chops right now. But if you can combine that where like a Texas Tech bought itself a team, and that's, that dog in that's how the game's played now. And they've got themselves a whale of a defensive front. Can you do that? Can you buy the starting guys who are just good enough to like do any damage once you get to the playoff? Because again, this year more than ever before, you're not going to have a 3-seed Boise State and a 4-seed Arizona State from last year. Your 3-seed is going to be that Texas Tech Big 12 champion who is pretty strong, and your 4-seed again probably going to be the Big 12 championship or Big 10 championship loser. So the easy team on this bunch is at worst a good South Florida team at the 12 and or whatever the ACC championship's going to be. You're going to have to win. There's no such thing as a cheap way to get to the national championship in the college football playoff. Let's see what these two programs can do.
It's Pete Futek, college football news. He's on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. We shall see what takes place again. IU coming up this weekend at home versus Wisconsin.
Oh, bad things.
Yeah.
The Wisconsin, that was a mirage. Just bad things are going to happen for my Badgers this weekend. That's not going to be pretty.
Yeah, and I was going to ask you this because I know he was injured and done, but we know Danny O'Neal, very well down here in Indianapolis. How has he looked the entirety of the season? I talked to him when he first started at San Diego State, but certainly not since he got to Wisconsin, and I know he's got that season-ending injury. How has he looked this season in Luke Fickell's?
Early, it's not fair, because, look, my kid goes to San Diego State, so I'm way too familiar with that program, too. And, last year's San Diego State team was not this year's San Diego State team. They did not have the protection and the parts in place like they do this year. So, and thrown in there as a true freshman, not a fair test. And thrown in this Wisconsin offense, not a fair test. So he's still got the talent. He's still good, but he still needs this whole Wisconsin season's just been a disaster. I mean, literally, the running joke is the punter led the team in passing last week in the win over Washington. It's just not been a good year for the Badger offense, and O'Neal just has not had a real shot to show what he can do yet.
Hey, Pete, I appreciate that, man. We'll do it again soon.
Anytime. You have a good one.
Pete Futek, college football news on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. I don't know if comparing, IU and this to Gonzaga in basketball, I don't even know if it's even that relatable, but that's kind of the first thing I think about because you always hear, well, the history's not there. They're not going to be able to recruit, and somebody's always going to recruit better. And, Gonzaga accomplished this in basketball, without the whole college athletics being the way that it is now. I just think with all this, you have seen a dedication to that IU football program in means and ways that truly matter in this moment. They have embraced where we are in college athletics as well as anybody. So I'm not going to dismiss it, and I'm sure as hell not going to dismiss it when, the guy that is the head coach there, Lear, right now, just simply put, is making all the right decisions. It's been incredible in this last year and a half. And I know what you say about, well, here's what Wisconsin used to be with Barry Alvarez, but that was still a part of a completely different landscape of college athletics. Until further notice, I don't know why you cannot continue, if you're IU, to take advantage of what you are right now, because clearly the blueprint that you have had to do that has worked as well as anybody's, considering where they were and where they are historically for decades, where they were and where they are now. There's no argument. Nobody has made this type of move. Again, I don't even know if my comparison with Gonzaga is even fair / sane, but it really is the only thing I can think of when somebody says, well, you don't want to go there and you got to go someplace else. It doesn't really matter anymore, especially with the finances. Quick break, we'll come back. Hey, tomorrow we're going to be in Bloomington. We'll talk about this even more, I'm sure, tomorrow at the Upstairs Pub. Info coming up to Friday, Bud Light Blue Friday, Colts tickets to give away. Yeah, we're going to be live at the Back Nine, Morris and Rover. Cannot wait to see you at one of these events tomorrow in Bloomington. Larceny Bourbon Locks, Luna Azul Tequila Shots. More on that coming up. 93.5, 107.5 The Fan.
Wide world of sports is going on here.
93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
All right, number 9 right here. Matt Rife is a comedian. You got to wait about a year. Next November of 2026, early November, in fact. Gamebridge Fieldhouse. You guys enjoy Matt Rife. Number 9 at 239-1070. Would you like to have that in your back pocket? Coming up next year? Matt Rife tickets, number 9 at 239-1070. Again, almost a year from now, early November of next year, Gamebridge Fieldhouse. Comedian Matt Rife, number 9, 239-1070. JMV, you can recruit anyone, anywhere these days if you have enough cash. And I talked about the resources. That's funny. We said all these years. I always thought this would certainly not at this. I mean, not even compared to this. And there's no way, or we would have to believe it to see it. And now I'm at a point where I'm going to have to believe it to see it if what they're doing doesn't work at some point. You can pay, get guys to come in. And I think the most important thing, well, no, not most important, it's right up there in level of importance, is making sure you select what is right for your team. You select the right personnel who complements what you want to do. And whether it was Curtis Rourke a year ago, the guy played through injury, was an absolute badass, or even now upping that a level with Fernando Mendoza this year and being mentioned as far as a front runner for the Heisman Trophy. That is what is really as important. That and, having the right staff around you. Being able to maintain that, which is not always going to be the case because guys are going to get other gigs, I'm sure. But, man, that has been so important. And then there's also something to be said about the enthusiasm that's been infused around that program. But again, it's all about the finances now. Yeah, no question about it. IU has that thing rolling and rolling big. JMV from Chris Hutton. I'm not worried about beating KC. Mahomes has beaten every single team in the NFL except for the Colts. That was also when the Colts were a lot worse and KC was a lot better. Yeah, I will tell you this. It doesn't even worry me offensively as much with Kansas City. And again, that's coming up after next week. I'm not so much worried about that as I am about their defense. They're one of the better defensive teams. And if we were going to, I guess, challenge or charge the Colts in wondering where they are right now, I think, outside of Jonathan Taylor running the football, which we saw to the clip of 244 on 32 rushing attempts last week in Berlin, it is, all right, have defenses that would be lesser than, or defenses figuring out the offensive protection and Daniel Jones. Because we have seen it in different ways, but all meeting in the middle being the same. The pressure and the completely out of the comfort zone that both Pittsburgh and Atlanta have placed Daniel Jones to where now it kind of stirs the echoes of what took place in 6 seasons in New York. Now, again, I still look back to Berlin, and he had the biggest play of the game was that third down scramble late in the game. But you can't deny that both Pittsburgh and Atlanta, they have made things uncomfortable in different ways by getting after the quarterback. That is something, as we talked to Stephen Holder a little bit earlier, that you're going to have to make that serious adjustment to. Yeah, that is the one thing. And there's some other aspects of it, too. I mean, DeForest Buckner's loss is huge. But gaining Charvarius Ward, one of the things that I'm really excited about after the bye week is something else we talked to Stephen Holder about a little bit earlier is Charvarius Ward. Are you going to get to see that secondary with Ward and Gardner and Moore? You got to see with Cross and Bynum, all together. I mean, just name recognition-wise, that is beyond legit. But seeing them healthy and playing together for the first time interests me. So it's not even so much the KC offense. Clearly with Patrick Mahomes, they can be devastating, but it's more the Kansas City defense. And if something has been found out regarding the Colts, especially in protections or something, then maybe, and I agree with Steven about, charging Shane Steichen with, well, this is something you have to figure out. It may not be long-lasting, but certainly it is trending now. And I don't have the expectation of the Colts offense to run roughshod over everybody to an elite level, never been done before, that we saw earlier this season leading up to basically that Pittsburgh game. I don't expect to see it at that level, but I sure as hell don't expect it to see protection-wise like you saw against Pittsburgh. 6 turnovers, the lack of ball security, that absolutely has to change, and Kansas City has a defense that can take advantage of that. So if I do lean a little bit more on being concerned about how Kansas City will match up defensively with the Colts offense. And that's why you hope that they're figuring that out, because that is an absolute have to, considering the remainder of the season and that particular schedule. There's any doubt about that. Yeah, that's pretty funny. You look at Wisconsin. I'm not going to charge, Wisconsin and IU with completely turning the tables on one another just because, again, the whole backdrop of college athletics is so drastically different. But you do now, and again, I use it even the highest of levels. But you look at Wisconsin, kind of the same thing about IU basketball and Wisconsin basketball. There was so many moments where Wisconsin was up, IU was down, and now IU's up. I don't know about Wisconsin hoops right now, but certainly Wisconsin football is not where it has been in the longer-term past. Going to get to see that coming up on Saturday at noon on Senior Day down in Bloomington. Tomorrow we're going to be in Bloomington. I'll explain that coming up on the other side. Larceny Bourbon Locks, Luna Azul Tequila Shots. Upstairs Pub in Bloomington tomorrow. Incredible. JMV, did you see the Northern Lights last night? I did not. I was playing some hoop and did not see. Is it called the Aurora Borealis? I was not solid in astronomy at Indiana State, oddly enough. I think we celebrated the release of Trivial Pursuit. Was anybody out there a big player of Trivial Pursuit back in the day? So not only did I play Trivial Pursuit, which I think was officially released earlier this week back in 1981, but I love playing Trivial Pursuit, but I struggled with the green and the brown. Because you went around the board. You ever played Trivial Pursuit? And you gained pies. You remember what the brown was, right? Art and literature.
I don't remember what the topics were, but I have played it.
And the green was science. So you would get art and literature. You have to name a novel, whatever, a writer. That was brown. And then green was science. So your answer would be like sedimentary or igneous rock, metamorphic. So I always kind of struggled. I'd have to go with the blue and the orange. Yeah, I would go around the board because geography was the blue and the orange was sports and leisure. But when you got the leisure question, that always threw me for a bit of a curveball too.
Don't they have versions of Trivial Pursuit where it's all pop culture knowledge and music and TV and movies?
Definitely.
You would kill at that one.
Yeah. Well, I used to play, and I was good at this too. I don't think it exists any longer. This goes back probably 25 years or so. You Don't Know Jack? You guys remember that?
I have heard
on
of that
the computer.
one, yeah.
You Don't Know Jack. I was incredible at that. I was kick ass at You Don't Know Jack. I would have been good at that, and I would have been good at when VH1 had the pop culture Jeopardy thing. The only problem I would have is if it were about today or any time in the past 20 or so years, I would be completely nude because I have no idea. And that's really about a lot of like the music stuff, all this stuff that's created now via YouTube or the internet with them. I have no idea. But if it were about like the Pacer uniforms last night celebrated 3 different decades, the 70s, 80s, and 90s, that's slam dunk for me. But once you get through Y2K and into the 2000s, and then I start to fade a little bit. But I was kick-ass at You Don't Know Jack. Tomorrow's kick-ass in Monroe County, Kirkwood. I may try to stir the echoes of greatness in the day by cruise. Anybody want to cruise in Bloomington? Yes, we used to cruise in Bloomington. I don't even know if you can anymore. I know we used to park in the parking garage in Bloomington. That's no longer there. Cruise, that would be down College, up Walnut, over to Kirkwood, up Dunn, and then over to Indiana, and then back down Kirkwood again. I think I remember that path. Cruising Bloomington back in the day. Didn't have a lot to do. We weren't on our phones jacking around like that. We were cruising Bloomington. Upstairs Pub coming up tomorrow. More of that, and we'll close the show with you coming up next. Don't go anywhere. The stream, the app, HD Radio, AAA Membership Lounge via YouTube Live, 93.5, 107.5 The Fan.
The Ride with JMV.
Yippee-ki-yay, Mr. Falcon.
93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
Windschulers, everybody. Favorite Meijer location? I mean, everywhere in the state of Indiana and Meijer. Same with Gordon Food Service, and I mentioned week before last I found it at Neiman's Harvest Market, which is a fantastic place up in Carmel. The spreadability of Windschulers for the fall and the football season of 2025. Jason Ellis says, I cruised the bash. So did I a little bit, but I was already of age over there, so I didn't really need to, but I know what you're talking about a few times between Rose-Hulman and ISU. Late 1990s to hang with my eventual wife. Oh, Pelk, man, this is money. Love the upstairs, and I think you are required to get an AMF. James, do you know what an AMF is?
Adios, mother. You know what?
I'm glad you didn't say it. Yeah. Thank you. Great. AMF. This goes all the way back to the upstairs, and then it was with hooligans back when I was first 21. And Sean D, rocking the party naturally, was the DJ locally in Bloomington inside hooligans. And he would always call out AMF, Pink Floyd's, and Long Island's all the time. Now, do they still have the Pink Floyd inside the upstairs? So the AMF, the Adios, the ingredients, half-ounce vodka, half-ounce rum, half-ounce tequila, half-ounce gin, blue curacao, half-ounce, sweet and sour mix, 2 ounces, and a 7-Up and or Sprite to top it off. That is an AMF. Have you ever had blue curacao before, anybody? The AMF. I'll tell you what. We'll all have one together tomorrow. Because we can get Brent with Heaven Hill Distillery. They've got all the ingredients there, I'm sure, to make one fantastic AMF, which is tomorrow at the upstairs. You are so right, though, Pelk. You are required to have an AMF in there. And we certainly will do that for you. Oh, this is going to be so good tomorrow. I'll let you guys know via social media whether or not we get my 80-year-old mother who called yesterday during the show when I was on the air asking if she was getting the NBA package on DirecTV for free. I said, I'm not there. How would I know? Evidently, she doesn't. And she is not happy about this at all. And when she's not happy, you know who gets the effect of that? That would be me. Which is pretty funny. Upstairs Pub tomorrow, Bloomington, Larceny, Bourbon Locks, Luna's Old Tequila Shots, me, Brent Halverson, and we'll see who all shows up. I put the bat signal out because I know Don Fisher has the Kurt Signetti show tomorrow evening at Hoosier Hanks. I'm going to see if Don can slide by during the beginning of the show tomorrow, too. And, hey, listen, I would love to see you guys down there. If you can make the roadie, if you're up here, we would love to have you. We'll stay after and have a lot of fun down there. I promise you that. I'm assuming I'm going to get a lot of Greene County flavor up there, too. I unlocked the gate, so they're going to be allowed in. The gate on 45 between Monroe and Greene County is unlocked. It's going to be a good time. Upstairs Pub in Bloomington, Kirkwood tomorrow. With Larceny Bourbon Locks and Luna Azul Tequila Shots. Again, Friday, 2 Bud Light Blue Friday Colts tickets to give away. The back 9. A very fun couple of days coming up. I'll see you guys all in Bloomington tomorrow. Just let me know on social media if you're coming. We'll make sure we carve out a spot for you. It is legendary. The upstairs tomorrow beginning at 3 o'clock. Hope to see you there. James, thank you for the time. Thanks to Eddie Garrison, the Aquarian Company show I did an hour of as well. 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan. Have a great night.